Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us on this special live discussion on the Modi, Trump meeting in Washington D.C. It isn't just about MAGA anymore. It's MAGA plus MEGA. It's mega partnership, and that's what Prime Minister Modi said in Washington D.C. this morning. That Trump and Modi are working on a mega partnership between India and the United States. One of his high stakes visit this year to the United States to meet President Trump. So he also met other business leaders as well, including Elon Musk and other politicians, Tulsi Gabbard and Vivek Ramaswamy there. So, we're joined by, to discuss more on this, we're joined by Mr. Sridhar Krishnaswamy, who is a foreign policy analyst, and our very own editor-in-chief, Mr. Srinivasan there. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I would like to begin with Mr. Sridhar Krishnaswamy there. Sir, how do you read this particular, meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi? What's the big takeaway for foreign policy?
Well, thank you for having me on your program. I think when you look at Mr. Modi's visit, one would have to come away with only a positive feeling, even if it happened against the backdrop of Trump asking his administration to do a review on tariffs. Because India has always been high on Mr. Trump's radar, in the sense that he has always looked at India as a high traffic maker, a traffic king, as what he used to refer to India as. So, given that, it is very significant that Mr. Modi, being the fourth leader to visit Washington and meet Mr. Trump, both from the optics point of view, from the atmospherics. It has been, I would say, so far, has been a very good trip for Mr. Modi, especially when you look at all the challenges that are ahead between New Delhi and Washington.
Srinivasan, sir, how do you see this? Because, do you see this more of a carrot and stick approach that Trump has been adopting to? Because one hand, he says, look, I'm going to deepen the trade deals between India and the United States. On the other hand, he says he signed a, sweeping reciprocal tariff for which India will also be largely being expected to be impacted because of this.
Yeah, so when two large leaders of two large countries meet at a world stage, obviously, things do happen which will more harmonious what you see as an optics. The details will be worked out later by the officials and other bureaucrats. It's clear here that the meeting went off well, and there was, both in front of camera spoke very harmoniously. There was enough backslapping, and Modi is good at alliteration. He used the word MAGA, MEGA to say mega.
That's
And
right.
these are all big ones. India trade with US currently is at $157 billion, and we have a deficit. US has a deficit against us, and they are now talking of $100 billion by 2030. That's a lot of time. I think the real deal will be struck somewhere in the fall or around September, when the details are worked out how much we are going to be hit by the tariffs. It's clear that US is determined to impose some tariffs on India, because the American establishment does feel like that. But some of this, or much of this, also is a negotiating tactics, very cleverly deployed by Trump. He's a businessman, that too a real estate developer, and he knows really how to get his way out. Very smart. So he's doing that. So what he did was, even as Modi landed, he was slapped with the news that, look, I'm going to impose tariff, new tariffs. So the stage was set. But the thing here, I must say that Indian establishment, Indian bureaucrats, Indian foreign officials, Modi, all of them know Trump very well. They have dealt with him in the first round when he was the president, and they know, all the officials know, his establishment also know very well. I think they're gone prepared. And like New York Times has put out, Modi has reached here to placate Trump. That's the word they use. So I think there's been little placate, because the king, as Trump is nowadays, is a world king. He needs to be placated. He needs to be assured, look, you're looking fine. You're doing very well. And that's what I think Modi has done. He has played onto his ego and returned happy. But look, end of the day, Trump will still go for details. He is determined to get a better deal for his country. So there is India has to try for give and take. India has to look after interest as well. I think net, it's been a good meeting.
That's right. Okay, I also wanted to take what you said. The extension of this is the trade deficit with Sridhar sir as well. There's a widening trade deficit between India and the United States, rightly said. But I think and I had read our Reuters report this morning where officials in the White House have been saying that Trump wants to sort of reduce the deficit through sticking on to two major sectors. One is energy, and the other one is going to be defense. On the defense front, we had a significant development coming in that the US is willing to sell its state-of-the-art, F-35 of the Lockheed Martins to India. We also have already a kind of an engagement with Russia as well for the Sukhoi 57. Do you think India should be doing this? What's your perspective? How do you think this is shaping up from a military strategy point of view?
See, when you look at defense
Mm-hmm.
and trade,
Mm-hmm.
you should be very careful. Yes, trade deficit is something that the US is trying to bridge, no doubt about it. But deep down, Trump also knows that one time buys of defense equipment does not settle long-term trade deficit issues. The US tried it with Japan in the 80s. It failed miserably. You have to address the structural causes of trade deficits or trade surpluses. Simply saying that I have a $50 billion in a deficit, and therefore it's okay if you go ahead and buy about 25, 30 F-35s, that will not work. That will not work either in the short or in the long term. That's one. Secondly, India will have to be very careful when it negotiates anything on defense with the United States. Yes, of course, they are offering you state-of-the-art, top-notch, fighter jets, F-35s. Okay, probably even the more advanced F-16s. But you have to look at it from a different perspective. It's just not going in and buying these things. Operationally, will they fit into the Indian scheme of things? That is very important, number one. Number two, what about technology transfer? Number three, what about spares? And number four, what about the legislative aspects of the United States that we must keep in mind? Don't forget, in the United States, one lawmaker, one senator can put a hold, an anonymous hold, on just about anything he or she is uncomfortable with. Mm-hmm. So in a critical juncture, when India is looking for some major spare parts, somebody can put a hold in Congress. So these are all the things, that you will have to keep in mind. It's not a simple go in, buy, come out. The Americans tried it with the Japanese when their budget deficit was only around $30 or $40 billion. But then the Japanese and the Americans realized very soon that offsetting it with one-time buys is not the solution.
I also want to focus on the other sector, Srinivasan sir. I think is the energy point of view, where that deal that's been spoken on the nuclear front. Nirmala Sitharaman in the budget has well to announce that India wants to sort of diversify its energy mix. There, we also spoke about this in detail in the previous episode. There, how do you see the India-US ties sort of shape up as far as the nuclear energy collaboration is concerned?
You're asking me?
Yeah, that's right, sir.
Yeah, okay, fine. So, look, in the energy sector, India needs a lot of energy. India is completely dependent on imports as far as its, crude oil is concerned. Now it has got a new avenue. US is one of the largest producer now of crude and oil and gas. And India may as well end up buying some more gas. But as far as oil is concerned, it has to be competitive. end of the day, the pricing is important, and Indians are going to negotiate on that as well. It's not that they will say you buy and we end up buying it, because India greatly benefited by buying Russian oil and then reselling it. So we had I mean, that's been a great push to our economy. But certainly, gas is something which we can look forward to because it's much cheaper. Yeah, these negotiations will go. So, of course, there are other things like they're trying to push almonds, pistachio, pecans, all these dry fruits. And India is one of the largest producer with people here getting better quality of life. Many people are importing, and actually 80% of India's almonds come from US already, the Californian. So all these things are already happening. India will get more of that. But that's not the main issue. The main issue is that one, as a world trade, it's moving away from a rule based world trade order. WTO is already down in the dumps. US is now pushing all its partners to go for bilateral negotiations. So, in that sense, what is happening is basically India will have to sit down and deal with Americans one to one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is clearly violating all the global rules which was established in 1947. So the WTO is now more or less it's kind of they have paralyzed it. It's not just Trump. Even Biden didn't do much. They didn't send a representative. So it's actually a matter of a larger concern. But then here, I think as Trump is transactional, Modi will also try to be as much transactional as possible and try to ensure what can be done in the form of give and take. Also, what you're witnessing is something very dramatic which is happening in the US. That he is in a tearing hurry. It's only 3 weeks since Trump took over, and then he is possibly caused a havoc in their own establishment in the US. And then he is, also doing so many executive orders and everything around the world. So he's sending a message all around, punching here, there. So amidst Modi has gone I think he's the fourth leader to have gone,
That's right.
and he's trying to quickly extract a deal and kind of work out something good for India. So that's why he's one of the earliest leader to have landed up there. I think in that sense, from broader diplomatic sense and a broader global development, what is happening is very interesting. That's what I would say. Because we still have to wait for the outcomes. As the details come, we'll know what we got. So both the leaders, as they call mega and mega leaders, both of them need something to take back home to their own supporters. See,
That's right.
lot of this Trump is doing to satisfy his MAGA constituency, which is very thrilled with him. I read a report saying that 80% of Americans, endorse what Trump is doing. Similarly, in India, there will be a huge, support for him when he comes back and says, "I got Tawar Rana extradited, and we'll,
That's right.
take revenge for whatever happened in 2611." So the home constituency also is very important for both the leaders. Uh, but if you really look at the other aspect, if you want to, I can pause here if you want Dr. Krishnaswamy to intervene. I would really go if you want to, discuss does these trade barriers and these trade
Mm-hmm.
talks really benefit? There is a question mark.
See,
Yeah, actually.
Trump was very careful. You see,
Mm-hmm.
1 hour before he met Mr. Modi, he set America abuzz, talking about a list of tariffs that he has got ready. Now, everybody was curious about the numbers. And then he came away and said, I have asked my administration people to analyze. You see, he's very careful. He knows that he just cannot simply fling around numbers as he did in the first few days in office. 25% on Canada, 25% on Mexico, 10% on China. He cannot do that. Not that he cares for WTO or the GATT. He could care less, or he could not care less. He, as Mr. Srinivasan said, But I don't think he loses sleep or the fact that he is dismantling internationally accepted regimes, be it in politics or in economics. In fact, he wants to be the disruptor in chief. He wants to see how far he can get away with it. So everybody, he wants to please his MAGA crowd. And Mr. Modi wants to come away with something also, because after all, everybody, when he comes back, they will ask him, "What have you brought back? What have you brought back?" And then he can't say, "I brought back, almost any, I mean, almost nothing." He has to have something. That's why you have this extradition of, Rana, as a very big thing. Now, that's a larger message that Trump is sending India, that I will not allow any of these kind of people to hang around the US. I will push them to you. You make sure that you try them. So this is the kind, we are living in a very, very volatile, very, fluid. It's too early to even talk about the second Trump administration. It's been only 3 weeks, not even 4. And people are no longer talking about the 100 days in office, because he has made an impact even in the first 10 days. But he is still way to go. And we are also way to go to talk about MIGA, MAGA, MEGA. I don't know whatever else will come, but but I'm sure Mr. Modi did the right thing by going early and marking his India's presence. So that is very important. Just as how the Japanese Prime Minister was the second to rush, but he tried his best to lay a lot of praise on Mr. Trump. It didn't work. It didn't work. He was very blunt with the Japanese Prime Minister. The same thing with the King of Jordan, but for different reasons. Netanyahu, different reason.
That's right.
Here, he wants not just on Harley Davidson. He wants tariffs reduced across the board. And, this is a language that the American people understand. See, the American people have to be told, if they slap me 10, I will slap them 10. If they slap me 20, I will slap them 20. So everybody thinks, okay, this guy really means what he says. So basically, that's a domestic constituency. He has to field for 2026 election and then 2028.
I also want to talk about Elon Musk here, but before that, let me get back to how Rana's extradition there. Srinivasan sir, I mean, how do you, the how Rana's extradition request being approved by Trump is seen as has hailed as a diplomatic victory for India. But how fast are things going to happen next? When will he be in India? What's the next procedure?
Yeah, so one thing Prime Minister Modi has been particular about, and particularly his regime for last, now he's in his third term, he's been about dealing with terrorism. And there are biggest symbols of one of the terrorist attacks in India stands out. One is the Parliament attacks, and another is the 26/11, the Bombay one. So it's etched very deeply in the minds of Indians. And since it's a conservative government, a right-wing assertion that such elements should be kept out. And it also showed in some ways, in a poor light, the previous regime, that they have been kind of a lackadaisical in dealing with terrorism. It's a very important political point for Modi to get back our Rana. So that's really going to be a big deal in that sense, and he'll be able to encash it. He will try to encash it politically. The entire process, legal process, how it will happen is for the details which will perhaps happen. Probably Dr. Krishnaswamy would know better about that, the way the whole process, how much time it would take and all those kind of details. But the very fact that both the leaders have, he has agreed for extradition and we're going to get back and the trial will happen here is a welcome development. And that's a biggest, I think, takeaway for Trump for Modi as far as his visit is concerned. I think, like I said earlier, that since the Indian establishment knew Trump very well, they have already gone there with a package. I am sure the proposal came from India saying that we'll take the trade bilateral to $500 billion by 2030. These are all, it's not too distant also, only 5 years. But yet it sounds very alluring. Who knows what happens after 5 years? We can always throw these figures and make each other pretty happy during these discussions. But it also kind of gives a long-term, direction to the trade between the two countries. So what India is probably trying to say is, look, it's not just one time. We want to have a longer, better, improved, further improved relationship, and we'll play a very important role vis-a-vis China and other things are concerned. I think it's a good way of dealing with when you're dealing with a very powerful entity who wants to show off his importance. It's a very nice way of dealing with him. It is left to us now to come back and decide how do we deal with our steel exports, how do we deal with other exports. We should be looking for alternate, markets intensely, and we should be looking more at service sector and areas where we can do very well. The two crucial things here. One, I think Modi did mention about immigrants, and he said, "I'm willing to take back all those immigrants." And he did say that it's not good that such things happen. He agreed, which is a lot of music to Trump's ears. But whether it will actually happen is a big question, because just sending 104 people has been such a mega issue here. There are identified illegal about, I think, 18,000 who've been more or less exhausted all the legal options. But then in the list is another 725,000. If they try to extradite all of them, it may take a decade or more. It's not so easy. It's not going to be. So it's again so that the tempers are lowered, and India has admitted, okay, we'll take back. What is there? But the real crucial thing is how much we are able to get further thing on H1B visa. H1B visa already we have a major share, 70-80%. The next is how much of green card and how much of other things happen for Indians. Those are the kind of things which we'll come to know in details. And as far as nothing much has come out, I haven't read much. Maybe it has come out. The meeting with Elon Musk, which is very important because he is almost now emerged as an alter ego of Mr. Trump. He's been standing next to his old desk, which is his son. You saw those images, though it looked very funny, but one must see the fact that he's a richest man trying to push his thing into India. His Tesla project and the Starlink, the question which you asked, both of them didn't take off. Starlink didn't take off because of security reasons, other things. India hasn't given any clearance. Now, I'm sure he pushed for those clearances, which will give us basically broadband and telecommunication and other things. So that's one area. I'm sure. I don't know what's the development on that. Second is sale of Teslas. Earlier, there was even a talk of a Tesla, a cheaper version for India, more affordable version rather than saying cheaper. Nowadays, cheap doesn't work. So maybe affordable version.
That's right.
I don't know what is the progress on that. So since India is also keen on EV push, whether it actually happens, those details have yet to emerge.
So I want to take this Tesla matter to Sridhar Krishnaswamy as well. Modi was seen, hailing Trump for his EV policy and so on. But again, if you look at what has happened in the past, Nitin Gadkari has been pushing, unless and until you put out a manufacturing facility out here, you won't be able to sell Tesla. And that's the deal that India was trying to broker with Elon Musk. Now you see a breakthrough there because, Modi has met Elon Musk, seem to have a very, fruitful discussion with his family and so on.
These are all good for optics, Mr. Modi talking with the world's richest man, with his family, kids, and all that stuff. And Mr. Musk running around the Oval Office with his son. All these are very good, when you look at it for TV and other things. But as Mr. Srinivasan said, these things don't happen overnight. It's a long, drawn out process. Take, for example, immigration. There are close to 800,000, 8 lakhs of people who are deemed to be illegal Indians. Now, we have only identified 18,000 of them who have reached the final stage of deportation, for whom deportation orders have supposedly been served. Out of the 18,000, we have brought home 104, and another 100 or 200 are supposedly on the way. So we are a long way off. And once again, there are larger immigration issues that have not come through. Maybe they talked at the delegation level. H-1B visas, getting rid of country quotas for green cards, and your wait time to get even a tourist visa to enter the United States. And today morning, I read in the papers that the Trump administration has tightened measures to get B1, B2 visa, that is the tourism and business visas. They have tightened it a little more. So when you're looking at relaxation, you're also hearing about tightening. So all these things take time. And don't forget, immigration is one thing that India cannot interfere with the business of the United States. Just as how we tell others not to interfere in our internal business, it is America's internal business and nobody wants illegals in their borders. And Mr. Modi was very firm when he said we are willing to take back our people who are illegal after verification. Because don't forget, there are a lot of shady characters in the United States also, who will give you a fake passport or fake whatever it is, fake social security card. So with that, you cannot get travel papers to come back to India. So we have to be very, very careful when we talk about the time frame. The only thing I can say is that when you are looking at trade, defense, immigration, all of these things will go well into the Trump second administration. You're not looking at any easy way out, as far as I can see. And also this extradition of this 2611 Rana, it has to play out the judicial process there. It does not mean that they can pick him up, put him in a plane, and send him. No,
Right, yeah.
he has the recourse to the rule of law. At best, Trump can instruct his Justice Department to take it easy. The problem with the Biden administration was that they had baggages with them, human rights. We are very worried how anybody would be treated when they are. And for a conservative government like Mr. Trump, you won't lose sleep as to how we are going to deal with any criminal, alleged criminal, when we bring him or her back. So now you have a Justice Department that has basically been given the license to look into anything and everything. Because Trump, for a long time, has been making the point that he was a victim of injustice of the Justice Department.
That's right, yeah.
Which is why he is going around gutting the entire federal, bureaucracy, the FBI, the CIA, you name it. Anything he thought worked against him, he's just asking them to go home or face the consequences.
That's right. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Very interesting insights there. So that's a wrap of this discussion there. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me in your show. Thank you. So what else is happening?